With 2024 coming to an end and, well, 2025 just around the corner, it is time to take a look at EMEA, the new teams we have coming up, and put them, as you guessed it, into a tier list. You've probably read the title already. You knew this was coming from the get-go, but I think this is going to be one of the most exciting years in EMEA, mainly because a lot of the heaviest hitters have maybe taken a bit of a hit themselves. A lot of the up-and-coming teams have sort of found themselves in a spot where there's potential. It's just whether or not they have found the right pieces or whether or not others have maybe picked them to the post. And I've noticed that this list is in alphabetical order, and that makes things incredibly difficult for me because we're going to start with Apeks. Now, Apeks as a squad kind of give me some flashbacks to I guess the Liquid roster of last year. It's you've taken this core, you've kept your core, I guess, in this case, and you're trying to bring them into the tier 1. Now, whether that works or not, I would lean towards not. I think it's very difficult for, especially players who've been in tier 1 who go down and then come back up again, to now just be completely different players and better at what they do. I think we noticed that with, like, for example, Enzo and Mystic. It's like they weren't bad players. They could definitely compete at the tier 1, but are they going to be making a run? Am I going to like then stick Apeks up here as having a chance? And I would say probably not. The thing that excites me, obviously, we've had recent rumors that I think are not really rumors anymore, that Flora is going to be joining this team, but it's whether or not now she is at that level, because we know that Flora is an insane player. Within Game Changers, she pretty much destroyed everyone. We've seen her play some like tier 2/3 games and still look pretty good. It's a little bit different to facing off against Durka. Like that's the level we're looking at here, if they can sort of compete. And I'll be honest, I need some convincing. Maybe I'll have to have a chat to Danito, but I think that for them to even make a playoffs run, I'll be surprised. Also, I don't believe we've had the full insight as to who their sort of like fifth is going to be. I know that the rumors are Lime. Again, a player I think is decent, but it's whether or not that not only can we see some of the players themselves on that team elevate themselves. Like, can we see the best of Molesy? Is Evolver going to be back to his old tricks, pulling off ninja diffusers? I don't know. And also then a test, I believe, for Hype's leadership. It's a lot of ifs, a lot of buts, and I'll be honest, I am yet to be convinced. Now, BBL is a little bit more of an interesting one. We've got Gentlemates up there because I was leaving that open for later, but we'll move on. Because when I saw this roster on paper, I wasn't particularly excited. Like, I didn't sit there and go like, wow, they've got a couple of players that didn't do too well last year and then some players from the tier 2. But then they beat Giant X. Now, Giant X was a team that, at least initially, I was incredibly high on. I thought that they picked up Westside, who is like sort of the player everybody's been talking about, like someone who, again, you look back at some of the stats that he's had and they're decent across the board. I've just, the streets have been talking, I guess is the phrase that everybody would like to use. But I don't want to say they got bodied, but like, at least in this series, it was a very good showing for the likes of BBL. We saw Sociable like have a great game. I'm really excited for Profik and Chihuahua especially. I think that Chihuahua being back is sort of like, it's like a flashback. It's almost like a fever dream because we haven't sort of seen this guy in the tier 1 in such a long time. In fact, for a lot of it, he was on just random no org rosters. That's what I'm trying to say. Obviously, we know Bonk, but like Hookahs, I always sort of memed that roster because of Bodork, and then going into Ascend basically before the roster died. So I'm excited to see him in tier 1, and obviously Loon, I can't say I know a massive amount about at all. Like, again, playing within that tier 2 scene. I do think even though they've managed to do well versus Giant X here, I still have a lot more faith in this roster as a whole, and there's still a lot of things I think need to be proven. Yumpy as an in-game leader is an exciting concept. I know that Sliggy in the past was saying that he believes in him as an individual, so I'll put them here for now. Obviously I'm going to try and even this out as best as possible, but I've done 5 categories, which really isn't going to help me out too much. Now, Fnatic, The Fnatic is still a tough one for me because I know that you're gonna look at that Fnatic roster. You're gonna see the sort of the legendary players that are there. You're gonna look at the likes of a Chronicle, an Althea, a Leo if we get him. I think that's another big question mark because I think with a Leo, without a doubt, I put them here, maybe even here. Without Leo, I am maybe putting them a little bit lower, mainly because I think that I still have questions about Kayak. I think in the tier 2, incredibly good player. But you have to then look at like the results. So these results where he's playing in Polaris, he's in a Farmers League. Like, let's be honest. This is like watching a Celtic or a Rangers play against the rest of the Scottish League. Or at times you could talk about like a Real Madrid or a Barcelona sort of just like beating out all of the sort of Spanish opposition. When it got into Ascension, at least from memory, he wasn't having the greatest of performances. He wasn't putting up those same sort of numbers that we've seen from him in previous matches. Did well versus a team that was playing a lot of Phoenix. Thanks for that one, Benny. But then we go to Rebel, and obviously, again, this event is a little bit different because you have Sayonara. I know a lot of people were looking at Boaster's stats for this one, and you kind of have to point out that even if the young kid Sayonara is clearly something special, there's going to be a lot of micromanaging. There's going to be a lot of different things that Boaster would have to do. So I'm not going to like put too much on this tournament, but we didn't see him light the world on fire. And I know that that's not necessarily fair on Kayak to look at, but you have to bear in mind who is sort of there otherwise. Like, who is the player that you are comparing him to? And that player is Durka, one of the best duelists we've ever had in the entirety of the whole game, but also in EMEA. So realistically, I think I'll put them here. I think that they probably make an international. I don't know if I believe they could win it all. I think that without Leo, I genuinely fear for this team. With Leo, it obviously pushes them up because of how fantastic he is as a player. Still have a lot of faith in Boaster's calling. Althea is still a fantastic individual. I just think we've got a lot of talent at the moment. Now, FUT is another one where I don't think putting them in makes an international is even that bold a claim anymore. Like, they have consistently done it over the last couple of years. Again, making it to Champions, making it to Shanghai. It's just something that this roster has done. Now, whether they make their mark on those events is another story altogether. Like, again, we saw them go to Champions, and again, okay, they lost to some of the best teams in the world. It's going to happen. I think it will be the same. I don't know if I believe yet with Zeus that they will win it all, but they definitely looked like a challenger. I think that him coming in as this youngster and being able to perform against players like Buzz, players like Stax, and this team went on to, well, do incredibly well in the final versus Cloud9. So I think that FUT, again, are going to be a contender. They again, make upgrades when you kind of could understand if they didn't, if that makes sense. Like, if they were a team that went, actually, we want to stick with our 5 from last year, we made champs, that well, we change anything, you'd go, okay, yeah, that's fair. Like, that's a reasonable thing to say. Now, again, this is another roster with Gentlemates where technically the roster hasn't been released, but we have leaks, we have rumors, and I don't know. I'm kind of excited for a lot of the rumors that we've had. Like, the idea of getting back Goked as like a head coach is exciting. I'm guessing that I don't think anything has been announced unless I massively miss it. No, currently they only have Cadaver, which, you know, as a single player, he's pretty good. Let's see, I feel like I'm going to move these later, but I think that they could be a top half team. I like the sounds of it. Like Zipan, I think, obviously Na'Vi had a bad year, but ultimately, I still think individually he was a solid player. Robbie BK, obviously an up-and-coming IGL, who was obviously playing with the side of Job Life. I think that they were kind of hard done by in the match that they lost. It was a horrible scenario, but he seems like someone that puts up decent numbers. Obviously, the numbers aren't showing because it was a while ago, but decent numbers for someone who's an IGL, and I think bringing a fresh look to the team is a good idea. Mini as well. Mini was one of the players that I really wanted to see in Tier 1. I think that Go Next, again, they started off so strong in Ascension, then kind of wilted at the end. But he was a solid Sentinel. And that's what I like about this team. I feel like they've picked up a lot of players that really fit within specific roles and will work. And then you've got Click. Now, Click is another person that people are raving about. Again, where we didn't really see too much of him because he only played through the DAC League. SK didn't make it, so it's one of those things where realistically he's only played within his own region, but the DAC League was always pretty competitive, and he put up some insane numbers. I don't know if he's the number one, but he's definitely got to be fairly close. Yeah, number 2 in the whole league. And obviously the rounds. I didn't realize Appa played so few, but yeah, it's one of those things where realistically I think that this team is exciting. I think they picked up a lot of good pieces, and similarly to like a Heretics last year, I think they got a lot of the good pieces that I wanted to see sort of coming into the league. So I'm excited for that roster. Now I've got to think about Giant X, because again, on paper, they're at least here. I think the roster moves that they make have me excited. I think Runner coming in, he might be one of the more underwhelming of the players that they had, just because, again, he was decent last year, but didn't light the world on fire. But the other players they've picked up, I've always been a huge Tombizz fan, and not just because we have the same name, but also because I think he can play anything. I think that he's slowly learning other roles while still being a fantastic duelist if needed. I think he was great when he was playing the likes of a Cypher last year. I think he put up some really good performances. And okay, it didn't necessarily go the best towards the end of the year, but I think under strong leadership, he could do very, very well. And they do have strong leadership. I'm also really interested to see Waylander. Like, if you're an old school CS fan, you would know this guy as like a player who was on Flipside, sort of pulled off a lot of like bullshit runs in tournaments. So I think this roster has a hell of a lot of firepower. And again, where people have spoken a lot about Westside as someone that needs to like sort of keep an eye on how this guy's going to do. So again, I'm looking forward to seeing what they have. I think they'll be in the top half. KC, it's so difficult because I feel like I just kind of want to put everyone here. Like, I think that's the cop-out spot, so I kind of need to not do that. I don't know. Because there's with this roster, there's huge positives, aka Sadak, and then just weird things. Like, I think Sadak and Eng as a combination could be a match made in heaven. The problem I have is their roles. And it's most teams, they sign a load of duelists and then they move them into other positions. This team has signed a load of sentinels and then just moved them into a load of positions, or like obviously ex-duelists in this case. And like the fact that we have a team where Sugetsu is not playing the sentinel, it's only because they have Elite. Now, Elite, again, you look at like the numbers, the guy puts up like crazy stats, and I think he has like the best headshot percentage ever. So you put him down like a turret, basically. The problem then, though, is that you go to Sugetsu, and you're in the same boat. Like, you're basically in the exact same boat. He played his first games on controller while playing in the Red Bull tournament, and that's not a great sign. Now, he is someone I hope we could see flex a little bit more, but it just... When you see players trying to shift out of roles, it will either like work nicely and you'll see maybe even an uptake in some of the players. Like, I think of someone like Xiao constantly getting moved around, but he just manages to make it work. I don't know necessarily if Sugetsu is that player yet. I think like these extra months of practice will be important, and the teams that they lost to are well-established teams who basically chained one player. So again, I don't want to like harp on them too much, because realistically, you're up against, hey, look, it's new G2 with just one change, and that change is adding Jorgabo. Hey, you're up against FUT, it's just one change, and that change is adding Zeus. It's like, yeah, you got banged, it happens. They beat Koi, which for me is honestly a little bit meaningless. Like, you beat a team, both new teams, it doesn't mean a lot. So I wanna see more from this roster. I don't know if that's controversial. It's between these two. I was really high on them originally, but I think now just looking at the rest of the league, it has me quite nervous. And speaking of the team they beat, we have Koi. Now, Koi, I'm excited with the coaching staff, but I think the obvious choice is there. I know I've taken a long time on a lot of others, but you got Shados. I think if Shados gets back to a peak, he's very exciting. Filu is one of those duelists where I think he's decent, but I need to see more than just him playing in the Italian league, because the league doesn't even exist anymore. It wasn't competitive. Like, it was Desire just basically blasting everybody in that league, and I think that, again, Filu is not a bad player, but he hasn't necessarily shown anything to me that makes me think he's going to be like a top 3 duelist in the league. Like, that's a long, long way away. And then the rest of the players, it's sort of just like, okay, I expect Grubinho and Shados to be decent. I think attitude-wise, I've really liked these players. I think Shados's peak is off the bloody chart, but we haven't seen that necessarily in a while. I think his recent games, or more recent, were still decent. Like, you look back to some of the matches here, and you're talking about a strong Shados performance. Also, Flyer coming in from Americas. Like, it's exciting to see another American IGL come in, but it's a very difference of culture, a lot of changes. And then Soulcast, where Soulcast, I think, again, did really well in their sort of rise in to get back into the league. Can he now take that step to get back to being a top-tier player? And those questions, for me, I don't know if the answer is going to be yes, because I think the rest of the teams are far too stacked. Now, actually, Na'Vi announced their roster yesterday, which is very convenient for me. Again, there's a lot of sort of question marks. I think the Hero's obviously someone that we saw quite a lot of last year, looked very good, but he's playing in a Boaster system, and I believe a Boaster system and an Angel system are two very different things. Maybe statistically at times you'll have the same, but one of them can be quite out of the box, one of them can be quite aggressive, and I want to see if Hero takes to water, whether it works out for him. I think that, again, the same for Koala coming over from America's obviously the head coach of Happy, which Happy and Angel, again, if you're an old school CS fan, you are living right now. Waylander coming back, Happy coming to EMEA, a major winner in CS, becoming a coach of Angel, who is another like top tier CS player, or a decent tier CS player. Xiao staying was a given. I think if he had gone, he would have been picked up almost immediately. And then Ruxic. Now, Ruxic, again, is someone that in recent times I haven't seen much of his play. Again, when hearing from members of the Turkish scene, they're quite confident in his ability to step into this roster. The fact that he seems to be top of the board in a lot of these games is a pretty good sign, and always putting up numbers. I am just going to stick a lot of teams in the... Oh, no. Because I think... Well, okay, let's be real. I'm going to go through the teams anyway. I'm doing this, but then it's where I place Liquid. Only 4 teams can make an international, so I can't put anyone higher. Top half can only be 6 teams, and I already have put 7. So, mathematically, this list is already wrong. The problem is, I wanted to put Liquid here. Okay, well, let's go, before we do, okay, it won't let me drag them back down. So, I've completely, the list is fucked. This is what I'm sticking with. So we'll go through the other teams. Who was left? We had Heretics, Vitality, Liquid. So, with Team Liquid, I'm really excited for this roster. Now, again, it's... Okay, we found it eventually. Again, we've seen them play recently versus Giant X, which again, maybe... I'd put Giant X up with them anyway. But I think that a Kamek, Patatek, Camo trio coming in is just an elite level signing. Like, I feel like Liquid... Like, I don't know if they broke the bank. I don't know the cost. But everything they did was like, hey, that's a really just obvious move. Like, Camo was putting up numbers last year in Koi, even when they weren't doing particularly well. I think that he was still able to put up a decent amount of stats. Paditek was the super sub, the support player, maybe even of like the year when he came in and just managed to help his team get to a grand final. Still blamed himself at the end when they lost, which is absurd. And then obviously Kamek, who was playing over in Job Life as well and was just having a great season. It might take a little bit of time to like mold a bit, but I think that they have a great mix of talent and also just players with experience. So I'm quite high on this team, but it does mean I have to move teams down. And also I've realized that playoffs at best, I feel like I can mix that one up. I'm going to do this. I'm BBL's going down one. That's my top half. The thing is, I feel like any of these three are interchangeable. And maybe even Fnatic. Like, depending on the Fnatic that we get. Because otherwise, that's the problem with this list. I feel like it's too linear. Like, as in, I've just gone, this team good last year, this team good last year, this team good last year, this team good last year. And no one's going to improve, which I don't really believe. I think that we are going to have some switch-ups. I know that this will probably upset quite a lot of Karmine Corp fans, which, fair enough. I'm happy to be wrong in the end. And after BBL's recent performances, I kind of wanted to put them a little bit higher. But this is, like, the only one I can really say is maybe moving Heretics down a bit. Like, Vitality, we'll talk about Vitality, because what Vitality have done, can't spell Vitality, is build a super team. They have built a roster that, honestly, if it doesn't win everything, they failed. Like, that's the only thing you can say about this roster. I'd say the coaching staff's a little bit more weird. Malik being announced, like, Malik was, like, we saw him on stage last year, so he was around anyway. Faded coming in as head coach. Someone who's come from TSM, I can't claim to know the success of TSM. I didn't watch them. I'm not going to pretend that I did. They lost to Blue Otter, which I don't know. I don't know what it says about the coaching stuff, but I can say that obviously the Vitality guys will have done a lot of work to pick this out. I think Malik, if you don't know, someone with a lot of experience in Counter-Strike, so not necessarily a bad pickup, but it's just the roster itself. On raw firepower alone, they should be able to blast like 9 out of 10 teams. You've brought less into EMEA, a guy who, again, just like one of the best in the world. Like, you expect big things. They brought in Durka, probably the best duelist EMEA's ever seen. They've still got Safe, Trex, and Kicks. Expectations are incredibly high. Heretics, obviously, they were great last year. The thing is, to do it twice is more difficult, so that's why I do have the temptation to do this, which seems insane because, like, there is no proof that this Vitality roster is necessarily going to be good. But you know what? This is where I'm leaving my list. Now, I am certain I'm going to have pissed off a lot of people. I think that this row in particular might upset as many people as I possibly could, but let me know what you think, because realistically, this is where I'm going to leave it. So I will probably do this for Pacific. I'll probably do it for Americas as well. I don't think with China I'll have kept up enough to really do a valid tier list, but maybe I'll give it a go just for fun. Either way, let me know what you think is critically wrong with my list, why I'm a fool, and what you would change. Feel free to link me your own underneath this video as well. And of course, make sure you subscribe, because I'll be back again very soon. See you then. Bye.